because it shouldn't be said.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Do.
All right.
Shame we're going live, but
hey Hugh, sing for us right now.
We are live now.
We're live. We're live.
Yeah, Hugh, I'm glad you're here, buddy. Like you're always here. So like,
I think Kurt has just said that he's flipped the switch.
Oh yeah, flipped the switch. The people are strolling through the front door. No, we're live, Jessa. You just got the lag. That's all, my friend.
Yeah.
Right, so
welcome back.
Okay, so I'm just going to let the room fill up here before we obviously start going into things.
Kurt, do the old intro before we go.
I'll be doing the fucking intro, Chris. Don't worry about that, sunshine.
You don't want me doing it in my posh accent.
Right. So,
I'm from Bristol.
do bear in mind we're going to have to lag, obviously, if you're looking on it through your phones. But please put them on silent.
Hugh, are you telling yourself that you suck from the chat?
No, I don't know who that is.
You are.
Kick them out.
Oh shit!
Right, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce you to the unbelievable Fireside gangbang with Love for Crypto today. Yeah, this is a bit of a fucking weird one. This, right? So we've got 7 people in the chat. We've got me, we've got Damore and Chris, who are part of the Love for Crypto crew. Yeah, the directors. You know, the blossom and the birth of Love for Crypto, if you want to call it that. And we've got Simon, we've got Jessa. We've had them two on a live stream before. We've got Agent Broccoli, and we've got Huge Ass. They are the avatar names, but they are very knowledgeable, insightful people. So it should be a good show. So we haven't actually got anything to talk about. We've just been having a laugh about this because we've literally got nothing to talk about. So we are highly depending on you guys asking us the questions, anything whatsoever, regulations, integrations, you name it. We're going to talk about. We're going to have a little quick fire round, and it's going to be absolutely fucking epic. I'd like to think it will be anyway. So I just want to actually say one thing. Mr. Broccoli is he's in our Telegram group, and he's got a lot of experience. Agent Broccoli. Sorry, Jessa. He's got a lot of experience within obviously the internet era and stuff. So it's great to have him. We've got Simon as well. So we have got actually very intelligent people here. We've got Jessa, who's obviously a lawyer over in the United States. You know, I fix fridges, which is highly skillful job. I'm only joking, Mike. So we're going to crack into it. So Jesse's going to moderate the questions. He's going to pick out the questions. But I don't know if anyone wants to give a little formal invite for themselves before we go into it. It's up to yourself. So I'll take that as a no then, right? So Jesse, straight to the questions then, mate. If you fucking found your
really.
Here we go. This is a great start. I found one here, Jesse. I'm doing your job for you, so you need to buckle up, mate.
I'm looking at it right now. I can do it for you.
Your conclusion about the video that you just posted about an hour ago. Now, Agent Broccoli, funnily enough, wants to say something about this, so there is the microphone for you.
Is it over to me?
It's over.
Okay.
It's over to you.
Evening, everyone, and thanks for listening. Earlier on, we listened to Christine Lagarde talk, and a lot of it was very similar to what we've heard in the past. But if you listen to it carefully, there was a lot of new stuff in there as well. I'm not going to go into the details. You need to listen to the replay. But I think there's a few things in there that we didn't really recognise quite yet as being aimed. It's almost like a tour. So you go on a tour and you tell the story, and then you've done it everywhere. And then the next year you're going to go on a tour and tell a new story. And I felt that what she told today was the start of a new level of explaining what's going on with the Internet of Value. I'll leave it at that for a moment. Just
hey, Broccoli, can I cut you off for 1 second? Sorry.
Yeah,
hey,
sure.
Guys,
exactly.
Everybody else in the stream,
like
if when you're not talking, if you could mute your microphone for a little bit, because there is a lot of noises happening right now. All right, Brock, go back on it.
Thank you. Oh, that's more peaceful. So yeah, I felt that what she was trying to explain was like a new edition of. It felt like the same story that we've heard in the previous IMF videos about inclusion and eradication of poverty, and we're all going to move everything up. But I think it's key to explain who she was speaking to at this case. In the past, it's been large conferences, world leaders. Who she was talking to today was the City of London, the most valuable square mile of finance industry in the world. She was talking to the house. Let's get the term right. The Worshipful Company of World Traders, and they are one of 110 livery companies that are based in the City of London, which is 1 square mile where all of the financial companies. It's almost like a different country.
It's its own district.
Yeah, in the middle of London, there's a small area where all the financial companies are based, and they have almost their own rules and their own laws. The livery companies of London have been date back to the 12th century, and if you listen to the language that she used when she greeted them, she was talking about agents and worshipful. Let me find the terms. Hold on a minute.
She was speaking in Old English.
Oh, she was.
It felt like it, didn't it? Didn't it? Just it was.
Talking to the old order.
Yeah, the elder scroll. I was just about to say it.
She was addressing them in the correct etiquette for the society.
But also lords. She's saying, and to my lords, these are peers of the realm. So these are the people that are in the House of Lords, who are sitting above the House of Commons. As the UK government, laws in England go through the House of Commons and have to then go to the House of Lords, where the peers decide if we are going to go forward with this or not. She is explaining the Internet of Value to the super aristocracy of the UK. I think this is a kind of very important key moment. And that's kind of what I wanted to say. I mean, we can go into the history of the livery companies. There are, I'm looking at the website where you listed the database of livery companies. These are all based in the 1 square mile of London. There is, I'm just going to go random, as well as the distillers company. There is the fan makers company, the farmers company, the firefighters company, the glovers company, the goldsmiths company. All of these groups and organizations go back, some of them to the 12th century. A lot of it's religious, Christian based, but a lot of it is royalty and super wealth and the Bank of England type.
These livery companies are actually responsible for an awful lot of the derivatives market.
Exactly. So what I think it was really important that we recognise who she was talking to. Like, the message is the same as we've heard many times, because we've got our finger on the pulse of Christine, and I'd love to have her in my arms, because I have a thing for her. But
can I just can I just put in there? Honest to God, you've just made the video that we just did before this 10 times better with what you just said there, because
absolutely.
Oh mate, honest to God, mate, it's it's like you're fucking part of the cult, mate, and speaking the word for him. But no, the information and the way you've just expressed it, it's like you say, she's addressing a conference of enthusiasts. It's the fucking House of Lords of the UK, which you could potentially argue could be the centre of the fucking universe in regards of the financial powers that be, if you want to call it that. So I think that was beautiful, that, mate. I've got a fucking tear to my eye, because that's right down my street, that type of shit, mate. It's like, it fucking is. It is.
I'd like to add a key point to that as well. When Christine Lagarde addresses a society like the Lords and Masters, and she opens her speech with the financial system has been outdone by crooks, which she refers to as bankers, and the system needs to change. Yeah. That, to me, highlights the issue of what is coming.
She's ushering it in.
Yeah, that is the ultimate issue from that one. She was saying that the control needs to come away from the banks.
Yeah. I'll say one last thing. Then we can go on and talk about other stuff. Like, look at the title of the speech, and her speech is on the website, like, in advance of what she's doing. The speech title is Redefining a Broader Sense of Purpose. And if you're talking to the lords and the aristocracy who really control the world to a large extent, and you give them a title, we're going to redefine our sense of purpose, These are the people that are trying to hopefully shape mankind in a good way. That, I mean, I think there's a lot of screw ups that they do, but I think the powers that be aren't evil. They're trying to do as best as they can, and we've had a hiccup for the last 30 or 40 years. And I think the people that are in power now, a new generation, are trying to take us in a better direction. And I think that's what the title says of the speech, redefining a broader sense of purpose. And that's all I wanted to say.
That's pretty cool. Very cool, actually.
Okay, I think, moving on. First, I think we should appreciate Jim Frank for making that donation. That was pretty cool of you.
Thank you, Jim. Cheers.
Yeah. Thanks. Yes, to everyone who does donate, obviously, we appreciate massively. If we don't obviously pick up at the time, it's just obviously it's just slipped by us for some reason, for whatever reason. But massive thanks for all the donations. Not really one for asking for him on his channel. I feel a bit of a comfort taking them, to be honest, but. Cheers anyway, obviously, nonetheless. It's not like we're out here.
You get a lot of Dogecoin with that.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, fucking hell, Dogecoin to the moon.
But, we definitely want some Doge donations. Doge nations, if you will.
Yeah, go. So okay, carry on, Jess. You go over to you, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw a good question in there. It's specifically, I don't even have to pick which one's going to answer because it was addressed towards Simon. Question for Simon. Can you explain the methods of how Ripple is choosing the institutional hedge funds and liquidity providers for RippleNet and how they will provide liquidity and market and making markets? Does that question make sense to you, Simon, or are you there?
Yeah, I just had my microphone muted. I completely forgot. Okay. Ripple.
You got it, right? You got the whole question?
Yeah, I got the whole question, okay. I think.
Okay.
Ripple will be... Can I take more than 69 seconds, though? Because it's going to take more than 69 seconds.
You have 169 seconds.
Fantastic, right.
Yeah. Right.
Ripple will target institutional investment wherever they can get it, really. And I don't think it's a case of how they choose. I think it's a case of who can provide it. Because with the way the network's built, anybody can contribute. So... the 900 people in this room, we could stick, £100,000 or $100,000 or whatever into a hedge fund, and we could be a connector on the ILP, and we could offer that money to facilitate payments, and we could offer it at really competitive rates. So our 100K goes first. The way I think that they are actually going to do it is I think they are going to use their XRP as a war chest. And the way hedge funds work, obviously, they have like a maturity. So whether you go into it for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 2 years, or whatever, if they can get a group of hedge funds like Arrington Capital X is the prime example, who have 100 million invested. Now, if they are willing to allow Ripple to use that or allow the network to use it to facilitate payments, they can offer them XRP as a reward for them taking their original XRP off the market and providing that liquidity to the system. Now, it comes more into play when the banks, everything get involved, because obviously once it's a more stable asset and once regulations are there, once banks can hold a percentage of their holdings, if they know that they're going to be making payments using XRP, or they know they're going to be facilitating payments using XRP, they don't need to source it, they can just hold it themselves and swap it between themselves. But in the meantime, while the whole system is building for a couple of years, while they want to attract the value into it before the banks can actually put the value into it. So they're going to be approaching hedge funds and all the rest of it. And does that make sense so far?
I'm getting it.
Yeah. So the way I think it's going to work. So why we here at LFC and why everyone think that SBI is such a key player. Now, SBI have, 20 odd million clients. And I think they've got quite a lot of that as institutional investment. Now, if SBI can get X amount of hedge funds involved, X amount of are willing to provide liquidity as a return and are willing to be rewarded for it, then there is no limit to what they can put into it apart from obviously how much they've got. So if they've got 100 billion, 200 billion, 300 billion yen sort of waiting just to come into it when it's legal for them to do so, they can pump all that volume into the XRP. And then on the actual XRP ledger, that is available for the network to use to facilitate payments, because that's the net worth of it. And that's the important thing, is it's companies and individuals, they can compete in providing liquidity. So no longer does it have to go through a correspondent bank. They can connect to a hedge fund willing to, provide liquidity. They can connect to a derivatives market willing to provide liquidity. They can connect to anybody that's willing to facilitate that payment and is offering the best rate to facilitate that payment, which could be anybody.
Hey, I don't know if it's you, Simon. Somebody's mic is making a lot of noise. Oh, it just stopped. So I don't know if someone's moving around or they just muted their mic, but whatever just changed, let's keep it like that.
Yeah, I think what it is it's done it to me before when I'm in my van. If you whoever's in the chat, if you've got like headphones that you issued from obviously your phone device, if the actual speaker part that dangles down is rubbing on your fabric, it'll pick it up as sort of a rustle noise.
I think it might be me then.
I think it
might be me.
Yeah, that's definitely what it is.
Yeah.
I've experienced. Yeah, it's probably rubbing off you.
Yeah, it's very distracting. So.
I am removing my North Face jacket as we speak.
I thought you were.
Aren't you like a tech genius, Simon? Shouldn't you?
That'll be it.
Sure.
So
Like
thank you, Andrew, for the
chair.
€10 donation.
Yeah,
Right,
thanks, Andrew.
We
for
need
donation.
noise cancellation crypto.
Yeah, right. No, I think that was very interesting what you said there, Simon, as well. Just a quick question that I did see go past, which I think will be good for yourself, just to finish up on, Simon. Is someone's asked about this 138 billion for this trial. Now they're asking whether it's going to be done through the public order books or OTC, where we won't witness the volume ourselves publicly. You said something pretty interesting about that yesterday about Instamatch. Do you know about if it was to utilise that volume, it would have to do it to a degree through open order books? Am I right saying that, or have I got that wrong?
If they don't hold the asset and they want to use XRP, they're going to have to source it. If they hold the asset, it's still going to move on the XRP ledger. So there won't be a buy or sell, but there will be a volume on obviously the trading volume will show on the XRP ledger. So they might not have to buy it, but they will have to buy it if they don't actually hold it.
Right, yeah, so obviously if they've got their own collective sort of pool, if you want to call it that, then obviously they can use that.
They can send it between themselves, but they can't do it at a fake value. So they can't agree, this is going to be $30 while we do this testing. It has to be, because it's a live market that they're interacting with, so it has to be at actual value.
Yeah.
A follow-up on that, does anybody know when that trial is going live?
That trial is live, and it is live already.
Okay. Okay.
Now, just a quick finish up on that. I don't think a lot of it's going to use XRP at the moment. I think they will use it for
Swift
some
rails?
of the transactions, but I would imagine an awful lot of that's going to go through the Swift GPI because there just isn't liquidity in it at the moment. But I would imagine that they will use the XRP for the ones that they can use the XRP for. So.
Well, I think that's interesting, in what you're saying, that there's no liquidity. And it's a question that keeps popping up, and a lot of it's when $10. But really, do you think any of you, and I know Simon has a lot to say on this because we've talked about it, but do you think price is being suppressed? And what do you, like, if you could guess what's suppressing it, what they're doing if you think it's being suppressed, what they're exactly doing to suppress it? Any ideas, guys?
I'd love to answer that one, but if anyone else wants to answer it first.
Take it, Kurt.
Right,
you have 69 seconds.
I can probably do it in that time. I believe that suppression is 1,000,000% happening, and we're not just seeing price suppression, we're seeing complete blackout in regards of XRP. If you think back to last year, when it was talks about XRP going on Coinbase, CNBC was plastering it all over like it was the greatest fucking headline in the world. Yet now we've got obviously all the talks with the IMF, the central banks, all these major partnerships, and you're not seeing anything whatsoever on mainstream media apart from Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the distraction in this regards. Now, I believe the markets are being suppressed because I believe that obviously, again, we've had this wave of innovation. The banks are late to the game, and they want to get obviously their own stake in it. So while we've got Jamie Dimon talking shit about Bitcoin, under the fucking ravel, behind the scenes, they've actually been creating their own JPN coin that they're going to try and utilise in some way for its own internal transactions. And I think what's basically happening here, it's been a flush out of the retail public. I think a crazy anomaly happened where obviously we've had this massive circulation, massive price rise and interest in cryptocurrencies. And Ripple was trading at basically $3.80 on speculation of Coinbase. Now, you think about all of the unravelings, the documentation, all of the input from all of the YouTubers, And you see how serious this actual technology is. And, you know, when we're talking about Ripple sitting on the board of the IMF, for example, working alongside the Bank of England, as we've just seen with the speech of Christine Lagarde, you know, Ripple are at the forefront of this movement, and they will be educating these regulatory bodies. For example, the IMF, Ripple are the leaders, and they sat on that high-level advisory board for that reason. So when we talk about price suppression, I've got my own little theory, and it might sound a little bit like cuckoo. You know, we've got all these thousands of coins that was completely overvalued back at, you know, the end of 2017, early 2018. And with most of these coins, you have to get into them by going through Bitcoin. Now, I've got this feeling that Bitcoin is being completely suppressed to a point where we look at the mining, for example. A lot of mining companies are shutting down. It's dragging down all of these other, you know, ICOs that have sprouted out of nowhere. And I think by suppressing Bitcoin, they've really got a hold of the market now, and they've got it under complete control. And I don't think we're going anywhere till we do see the regulations, till we do see the institutions like Fidelity providing the custody solutions. Listen, the major banks of the world and the US aren't going to just let this innovation fly off without having its own input and own infrastructure sort of built alongside it. So I think we're being suppressed by Wall Street are playing catch up to some degree, if you want to call it that. But I'll probably leave it on that note, because I could talk about that for fucking ages, but I'll leave it at that one, Jessa, if that was a good enough answer for you and for the people who's watching.
That was great, and you know, Simon has an interesting theory as well. You know, and Kurt, I agree with you. I can't say that it's being suppressed, but it really feels like it. You know, all you have is positive news and downward price movement. That feels like suppression to me. But Simon has some interesting theories. I'm not sure if he's, you know, Simon, you okay with sharing them, or you let me know.
No, can do. Kurt's bang on with it. I think it's kill many birds with one stone method in regards to this. And the one thing that I don't agree with is I don't agree with the banks holding it back, because there is no reason for the banks to hold it back. Because with them using it as a bridge, it's only going to bridge the value that the banks have got anyway. The banks couldn't actually gain that much artificial value from it, because it would actually create a massive liquidity problem in the system, because it would be massively overvalued, and then the actual liquidity wouldn't be there to support it. So it would just go too far. Where it comes to why I think it's being held back is, I think it's being held back, as Kurt said, for regulations, but it's regulations for the investors, for the actual utility purpose of it. And I think when you get the likes of Fidelity and, as Kurt was saying, Coinbase. Now, Coinbase, funnily enough, went live with a quick message saying going live in 15 minutes, and now XRP is live on Coinbase with no hype whatsoever. And that is because Coinbase has been done so much for market manipulation. So because of the speculation of it in 2017, 2018, and then all year sort of this, and then they have actually been fined twice for it, and for insider trading, and they're dealing with a couple of lawsuits regarding it as well. So that's the reason for that. So just a quick message: we're going live in 15 minutes. Then there's no fluff, no buff, no us. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that news when Asia wakes up. That will be very interesting.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, because you know it's a level of certainty that is with a Coinbase listing. So it'd be interesting to see. But also on the back of that, I would imagine with Coinbase going live, I would imagine that SBI are not long behind.
That makes sense. That really does. You know, I feel like we've always known Coinbase was going to go live with XRP.
Yeah, we said it from the start. We've said it's always going to do it.
But it feels like they wouldn't do it until something big was about to happen, right?
Yeah, they'd wait till the last minute.
Yeah.
And that's all they've done. But I think as a result of that, I think Kurt's right, because at the moment the order books on the exchanges, they're pretty thin, to be fair. It wouldn't take a lot to hike the price and then stick a couple of buy and sell walls up and take it from there. And I think that's what's actually going to happen. So I've always stated that I believe Shannon's theory is correct. It isn't correct on the fact that you can't just do it at one exchange and it will happen. Because if you do it at one exchange, arbitrage couldn't deal with that sort of volume. You'd get so much flow in from other exchanges, it would make all exchanges illiquid. But if you sort of mass executed massive market orders across all the exchanges, especially the ones that are on the Ripple network. Now, bear this in mind as well. The only exchanges that XCurrent and XRapid use are Ripple preferred exchanges. They don't use any other exchanges. So your Bitstamp, your Bitso, your Bittrex International. We all pretty much know Binance is there. I would imagine Coinbase is going to be a Ripple partner network as well. They're the only exchanges that the Ripple network can use when it's sourcing XRP from open markets. They can't go to a different exchange that isn't listed. So the smaller exchanges, the arbitrage will flow from the smaller exchanges to the bigger exchanges. The bigger exchanges will become like correspondent banks, and they will just sweep the order books up to a certain price. Now, if you did it that way, then it's sustainable and it could work. That's all I've got to say.
Oh, okay, cool. So going off the comments for a second, I still see some when $10 or how do we know, who's Simon? How do we know how to trust him? At the end of the day, I don't speak for LFC when I say this, but, we're not going to give you a price prediction. We're not going to tell you when $10 because no one really knows. It's probably next Friday at 4 p.m., something like that. If you want to, if you don't want to trust us, we're just having a good time. We're just having a fun chat. I mean, the title of this is Fireside Gangbang. So whatever you take out of this, you can. I think Agent Broccoli has an interesting point on this. So I'd like to turn the mic to him.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I mean, just a little bit about the market at the moment. I mean, the reason there's no growth is that there's no inflow. There's no new cash inflowing into the market. Like when market cap is changing and the dynamics and the price that we see on coin market cap changing, it's not due to new cash arriving into the industry or into the market that we need. There's not really been much cash coming in since 2017, 28, during the peak and the hype in January last year. So what we've had over the year is the same cash being moved from one asset to another, but not like billions of dollars coming in from external sources. And I think that's why we're waiting on, and we're not going to get that until the regulations are there. So.
Which sound like they're coming soon to me, if you ask me, after everything we've seen today.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they're coming. They are definitely on their way, but the market's not going to move massively just because of market cap. I mean, the market cap is set by the price of the last trade. That's not the value of the network.
Yeah, I think going off what Chris just said as well, there has been quite a lot of news coming out. I think there's news with India. I think they've issued a 4-week deadline. I think Russia have just issued a deadline for around June.
Is it Norway as well?
Yeah, which we're seeing a lot of it happening. I think the UK's definition or classification is
UK in April. You've got India in April. You've got Bahrain in April. You've got Russia in July. You've got Chris just said Norway. They've got a 6-week sort of timescale. Malta, they've said they're going to be issued by April. There's literally every single crypto-friendly nation has decided to. The only one that we are really waiting on, which we know is coming, is the US for the token taxonomy.
Yeah, they can't.
It's coming soon.
They can't wait till the end of the year. They haven't got the time.
I'd like to hear what. Sorry, Chris, you can finish. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No worries. You carry on. It's all good.
Yeah, I want to turn it to Hugh because we haven't really, we haven't given him a chance to talk. So, Hugh, anything that sparked your interest from what we were just talking about? Anything you want to say?
Well, first, howdy, folks. For those that don't know me, I live in Texas. No, I think some of the best news, ironically, was what Putin came out and basically said, if you don't give me some crypto regs, I'm gonna throw you in Siberia. And that is good news for the U.S. because you think Trump is gonna just let that go get passed up by Russia? No way. They're coming. 3 months would be my guess.
All right, great. Yeah, if I could, thanks, Hugh. If I could interrupt for 1 second, and then we'll get back on topic. I've seen a couple of questions about, regulations or Ripple litigation update. People want to know what's happening with that one lawsuit, where Ripple's being sued over security. If I could just add some facts in there. So in February, this is February, earlier February, I think February 10th, 12th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, somewhere around there. In federal court, there was an oral argument on the plaintiff's motion. They were trying to remand. Basically, for those of you who don't know, this case was in state court, and then it was removed to federal court. And then the people who sued, saying that XRP was a security, were trying to bring it back to state court. That's what a motion to remand is. And basically they had an oral argument over that, which is really where both sides kind of prepare their cases. They give a brief to the judge and they say, this is why you should remand, this is why you should not remand. It was in front of Judge Hamilton, and pretty much they had a case managed conference set for the next week, but instead she canceled that case managed conference and she didn't make a decision. And that could mean one of a million things, So basically, you'd expect her to have made a decision. That either means that she doesn't know what she's doing. The case is going to go back to state court, but they're taking their time on it. Maybe the parties are settling. That's another option. Or another option is she's waiting for something, and I don't want you to take this as legal advice, but she could be potentially waiting for something like the Token Taxonomy Act to be introduced, some clear regulation, just kind of wasting time around, wasting time until something happens. So that's kind of like your quick, brief update. As for the Token Taxonomy Act, it's not clear when it's going to be introduced, but I can tell you that Warren Davidson, in a recent panel discussion with the Financial Services Committee in the House, did kind of tip his hat a little bit to say that they're still working on the Token Taxonomy Act. They plan on introducing it. They didn't say soon, or they didn't say when they were going to introduce it, but they did say that when they do, I forget the exact words he used. If anyone can remember, let me know. But it was basically
in short order.
In short order, that's it. Yeah. So they said it was going to go through the committee in short order. That's not really a legal term. It doesn't really mean anything. But from my interpretation, it sounds like they're going to try to get it right through the committee. Quickly through the committee, pass through the House.
It has
and then on
it has
Senate.
A sense of urgency to it. It's like
that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody have any input? Anything they think is interesting about that, or anyone can go here.
I have one quick question regarding the obviously when token taxonomy is introduced, if it becomes law, will Hamilton actually just throw the case out and tell the plaintiffs that they have to refile under a different motion because it can no longer be viewed as a security?
No, I really don't think so. I mean, at the end of the day, you're still going to be looking back, unless if the regulation itself has something built into it that applies it backwards, and from what I've seen, it doesn't. But
yeah, but it does. It does backdate because it backdates taxes as well.
Oh, you're right. Do you know what date it backdates to? I mean, I don't
2017, remember. Which was also before the date that it is actually filed, before they could actually file it and base it as a security.
Well, there you go. I think that's your answer. If it backdates it, then it's a weird thing that you could do that, but you can for some reason. I mean, the U.S. is all kinds of screwed up, as y'all can imagine. But yeah, if they backdate that law, then any lawsuit that when the law changes, they have to follow. They have to follow what the new law says. So that then she'll toss that case. At least that's my opinion on it. Okay. Anybody else something to say about token taxonomy, or do you want to kind of?
I've got a little bit of a question in regards to regulations, which is it's on top of my mind as well, and I think I just see.
Oh gosh, I'm on the hot seat these days.
Right. So basically, obviously, we're waiting for regulations. We've just been speaking about it. Russia, India, Japan, England, the US, obviously with the token taxonomy, which I think will be a bit of a major thing really for crypto regulations. Do you think from the regulations being given, with banks then being able to operate using digital assets, do you think it's going to happen in a short sort of boom cycle, or do you think it is going to be a gradual adoption from regulations? Can you see basically what I'm basically trying to ask is, let's say Japan gets regulated and SBI now have the operation of being a market maker for the market takers. Will we see a surge in price through the demand, or do you think it is going to be a steady process, so to speak? I mean, this is a question to anyone to answer this. That I would just like to know other people's input on that.
I want to just take one point quickly. It isn't just sort of investment regulations that the banks are waiting for. There does need to be changes to some open banking regulations. Basel III has just come in, and there needs to be some changes to the liquidity provisions and what they can actually invest in. Now, very quickly, this subject was touched upon yesterday with the chairman of the Fed, Mr. Powell, and he was saying that he would like to reintroduce banks being able to invest, or private investing being able to take on the balance sheet of mortgages and stuff like that, as opposed to it being the state. So I do think there is some banking changes that are going to come from the Fed in order for them to, for banks to make riskier investments.
So basically what you're saying in there, obviously we might see the, let's call it the definition, the classification, whether it's a commodity, security, currency, and then do you think that we're going to have to build regulations moving forward from then in order for it to be used by order banking, for example, allowing banks to obviously obtain these assets for its own balance sheet? I'm just, you know, these days it's different. When I first got into it was easy to get excited, but I am well and firmly on the ground with it now, and I like to try and believe to the people. That's how I put the message across. Now, obviously, it is a massive change, especially when we're talking about how transactions are going to be settled, securities are going to be settled, and you know, just one simple bit of regulation isn't just going to enable all this type of thing to start happening. There is going to be some sort of framework, and I do believe, you know, that it could take the vast majority of this year, even leading into 2020, before we see a broad enterprise use of these digital assets. I mean, that's just my own personal opinion. I might be wrong. I'd like to see it go to $10 in a blink of an eye once SBI start operating. But I do like to look at it from both sides of angles. And I like to say it'd be interesting if anyone else has got an input on that, whether they think I'm being too conservative, maybe.
Curtis, it's Agent Broccoli.
Yeah.
One point I'd like to kind of make and describe a little bit. We're waiting on US regulations. This is obviously a clear thing that we're waiting for the SEC. And one of the reasons we're waiting on this, around the world, each country has their own legal framework. But a lot of the developing countries, what they haven't had in the past is the infrastructure to define their own. So they've copied American frameworks or UK frameworks, and they do this a lot around Asia. If you look at the laws, they're absolutely identical copies of European or UK or American laws. So I think a lot of the developing countries are probably looking to what they see as more advanced, maybe not the right term, but countries that are more invested in investigating how to work this, and they're looking for guidance. So when America decides, a lot of the other countries around the world say, okay, that's the way the world is going to go. So not only is we're waiting for America, the rest of the world are waiting for America.
Great bit of input.
Sorry, guys. I just want to update something, because you know the chat is very active, and I want to apologize to you guys because Crypto Dave in there, he did point me onto something that I didn't consider. So yeah, the lawsuit happened in 2017, but the issue stemmed from pre-2017. So even if it backs just to 2017, that case, you know, the token taxonomy has nothing to do with that case, unless if they take it and back it to like 2012. Do you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
To be honest, Jesse,
Okay.
your entire legal system doesn't make sense to me, mate. It just seems to be fucking arse face about everything, mate. From one committee to a subcommittee to fucking, I don't know.
Yeah.
All
All that I'm saying is I just want to apologize because, you know, in listening to Simon, I thought that he was saying that the issue stemmed from 2017. But no, the lawsuit happened in 2017. The issue stemmed from pre-2017. Is that accurate?
Also, if we're going to go by the letter of the law,
they were past the statute
they were
of
past the
limitations.
statute for the 2 years anyway. So
yeah, they were definitely past the statute of limitations. But I do want to correct myself.
If they put everything together, so if she actually weighs up everything and says, right, it was 2 years past, this has just come in, you know, that's it. Yeah. The reason why it won't get remanded is it needs to be a federal ruling. That's the bottom line. It can't be a state ruling. Whatever happens with XRP, it needs to be federal.
I agree. A state ruling is not helpful for anybody at the end of the day. And, you know, once again, Dave, I apologize for that. Some people in the chat are saying that, the Token Taxonomy Act has been introduced. They know it. I have to be honest. I've looked through the register. The Token Taxonomy Act has not been introduced. They can't hide that. I guess technically they could, but, you know, the U.S. government isn't going to hide something like a minor bill being introduced from the public. You know, they have all these other crypto legislations that have been introduced, and they are all on the register. They're all in the public register. You know, they're not going to introduce it and hide it. So, you know, I just want to throw out those, get rid of those conspiracy theories. It's just, it's not happening that way.
I will say that some of the updates though on the registry, Jesse, one came in today that was actually filed on the 12th of February. So they're not the best at updating the registry either.
Yeah. But the one thing that people don't know is, you can look through just the bills introduced, but they also have a daily, I forget the name, like a daily register where you can literally see everything that's been said that whole day. It's like they type it up, you know, like minutes. And if you look through those minutes, you can actually see everything. Even if they don't update it in the system, it's still all in those minutes. And there's been nothing crypto related in those minutes, specifically token taxonomy.
I mean, are we expecting anything other than, I don't know, I call it a kind of binary answer. It's either yes, go forward, accelerate, DLT, go for it. Is there anything in the middle between on and off in these bills?
I'm sorry, I don't really understand that question.
Sorry, maybe I didn't
no,
articulate it.
It's all. It's not all or nothing. It's all.
No.
When you... Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I think personally, lead on from top of that, you know, we've got all these individual nations, you know, basically coming to their own regulatory legislations that they're going to be making. For something like this, which is, you know, basically a global asset, you know, we'd like to think it as the global digital reserve asset moving forwards. Does anybody else not think that we need sort of a global framework, so to speak? You know, maybe that could be introduced maybe from the G20 or the United Nations?
G20, yeah. I also think today's event in the House of Lords was significant though on that.
Oh yeah, major significant. I completely agree with that. I mean, as Agent Broccoli, it sounds fucking weird saying Agent Broccoli, but as he stated, you know, this is being presented to the House of Lords. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't in the House of Lords, just to be clear. But you can hear her acknowledging the lords in the room. Yeah. So there are some peers of the realm in the room. I guess that could mean there were two if she was acknowledging peers. But I assume that this is the centre of power, basically, in London.
Yeah. Thank you, Robin, for your donation, by the way.
Thanks, Robin, I don't know if there's any other sort of maybe different questions, Jesse, going on to a different topic. Have you picked anything out, or?
There's not any, you know, I haven't seen anything yet.
I see. So I think someone mentioned something about Basel III, I think.
I just see Basel III.
Yeah, just Basel another 3, name question.
I see. I don't see a question.
The question was, Basel III comes into effect on March 31st. The banks are required a certain level of liquidity in their balance sheets. Do these banks need to move on XRP to satisfy Basel III or an alternative?
That's a great question. Simon and I have talked about this a few times. Simon's probably the best one to answer it.
Yeah, we'll let Simon hit that one.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I mean, I'll just mumble it and mess it up, and you'll just correct me. So we might as well just go straight.
Did you get that, Saya?
Yeah, I got it. Right, just very quickly closing one thing off because we're talking about the G20 then. Just to let you guys all know that G20 this year is actually in Japan. And it's on the 28th and the 29th of June.
Ouch.
So, and it has, again, an agenda on crypto and crypto-related
G20
issues.
Japan.
Yeah.
Oh, God, fucking hell, ironic, eh? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, Bearable Guy will be doing fucking riddles on that tomorrow.
Yeah.
So just to, so the question
just sorry, Simon, can you just say something? I just want to give a massive shout out to SPQR who are in the room. I'm going to make them moderators. I've got every intention of getting these guys on the show, and I absolutely love their work that they do. They've sort of got their own little combined group doing deep dives, and I think it's just great to see other UK based people obviously jumping on this, spreading the word. So I just want to give them a massive shout out. I've made them admin in there, and just keep up the good work, guys. Just felt the need to do that for them because they're doing a lot of hard work, and the information is very decent. So I'll pass on to you, Simon, for interrupting you then, mate.
Right, it's okay. Right, Basel III.
Basel III.
It's really complicated. I'm not going to lie to you. Right, basically, banks work on several different models, but when it comes to liquidity, liquidity is, how best to describe it, high quality. Let's say a high quality liquid asset. So a high quality liquid asset is something that you can either convert into cash very, very quickly, so a commodity or a stock, or just plain simple cash. Now the Basel III laws, they actually mean that the banks have to hold more liquidity, and the banks actually have to hold enough high quality liquidity to fund 30 days of cash outflows in reserve, which is a massive amount of liquidity. So do I think XRP is going to have to play a role? Quite possibly. So that's the honest answer.
In layman's terms, that means the banks need to have more cash on standby, and they can't play around without having the cash to back it up.
Yeah, I think is that if I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but obviously during 2008 there was a lot of banks that was high leveraged in dog shit. I suppose it's CDOs or something they call it, all these fucking mortgage default swaps, whatever. Was this a safeguard put in place to sort of make sure that banks have that adequate liquidity if we do run into?
It's a post-financial crisis safeguard.
Yeah.
But it only applies to certain banks. It only applies to sort of high-value banks as well. So, with more than 250 billion in assets.
And it's the third time they've done it because it's Basel III. There was Basel II and Basel I.
Which obviously have both been insufficient in the values of liquidity because it still put too much strain on the system. And it's measured in what they call an LCR, which is a liquidity ratio. So they've failed both of them.
So we should look for what Basel IV might be, basically.
I've got an interesting point. No one's answered it in the questions, but I don't know when this hearing was, but it was news to me anyway. Could have let this one slip under the radar. But Dan Morgan, who's head of regulatory relations at Ripple for the EU, was addressing the EU Parliament, and he was actually speaking about both products that Ripple offer, XCurrent and XRapid. And he went to talk about the Nostro and Vostro accounts averaging between 5 to 10 trillion, depending what paper he was reading it from. But then after that, he touched up on XRapid, and he spoke and said, in October, XRapid was made commercially available, but we're actually not yet live. Now, this actually comes to a shock to me, because I do believe that maybe the small payment company, so to speak, might be operating using XRP live, but I got the sense of impression from Dan Morgan, because he did follow up by saying, and that is due down to regulations. So again, obviously regulations are holding that back, but for me, I thought that was a massive takeaway from that, because it actually just goes to show, when we have been looking at the volume, and you've all got the Bitcoin maximalists saying you've gone live, nothing's happened, there is sort of some validification behind the reasoning of why we have remained at these prices. And again, I do believe it is all down to regulations, but I don't know if any of you guys want to touch up on anything from that. I found it really interesting. That I was planning on making a video. In fact, I could probably put it on, but no, I'll leave it because it'll take me ages to find through my Twitter. But
I just want to say that it's exactly what you've been saying for ages. The fact that there is very, very, very small remittance companies live using XRP. I think Dan Morgan was specifically relating to the banks sort of utilising sort of the XRapid model via the XCurrent system that they've got installed. I think that's what he was sort of mainly aiming that comment at, and which that they are having issues with, which we know about. So, but
because it's this. I mean, like you say, obviously we do a lot of our fundamentals strongly behind SBI, and a lot of the tweets that are coming from Yosha. For example, 20 of the global major banks will incorporate XRP for payments in 2019. We've also heard from Brad Garlinghouse stating that banks he expects, or should I say predicts, that banks will be holding digital assets on their balance sheets this year again, and then we're hearing
banks already hold it on their assets.
Well,
because
you
bank with a bank that has just been granted a banking license by the European Union.
Yeah, of course, I understand that, and to a degree, we actually got the question answered for us from the Bank of England. Yeah, I mean, in the UK, you can hold. But again, when we're talking about the payments and actually being utilised maybe through the XRapid product, through the open order books from the Ripple partner exchanges, again, yeah, we probably are seeing the remittance companies. But when we're talking tier 1, 2 and 3 banks, who probably need adequate regulation before they can start actually utilising the asset for obviously its cost reduction and, you know, all the advantages in regards of, you know, obtaining back your nostro capital and just pre-funding your own currency and obviously then moving to XRP. I think it's going to be a very interesting year, whether something happens to the price or whether it's not. There's a lot of stuff that's going on this year globally as well surrounding digital assets, and I think it's a wonderful time to be alive, to be perfectly honest. I don't know if it's just me who's sad and pathetic who thinks like that, but
no, we're all sad and pathetic. Mate.
Yeah, I think we all are.
Yeah.
No, just to respond as well to whoever in the chat, because I have been thinking about it and I have to say something when something bugs me. And whoever said, "Who is Simon? How can we trust him?" Hi, my name's Simon. I'm the voice on the internet. All this information is available. Use Google.
Absolutely.
So the answer is do your own fucking research.
You're one step above a cartoon bear.
Going off that, Simon, though, so for the late joiners, you know, just so you know who is talking here, because there's a lot of random voices. You have, I'm Jesse. We have the LFC crew. We have Chris, Demore, and Kurt, and Simon. And we also have Huge Ass and Agent Broccoli. That is our team. Just a bunch of assholes who don't know anything about anything, just making it up. But like Simon said, you know, everything that we're talking about here, it's no one's an insider, no one's pretending to be an insider. We've all just done our research, and what we're presenting to you is our research. You can choose to ignore that. Go ahead.
It's not financial advice.
Not financial advice. Not legal advice also. You can choose to ignore what we say, you can choose to take it, you know. That's really, you do what you want to do. Okay, so a question that we have that I missed earlier is, you know, people are asking about taxes when investors cash out. You know, will you be able to buy? Will you be taxed on, you know, the conversion of your XRP or whatever other crypto you have to cash? You know, quickly for me, just so you know, I don't know where you live, so I can't really tell you what the law is going to be. But what I can tell you is that law really isn't set anywhere. You know, in America, you are going to pay capital gains taxes on it right now, and I assume that everywhere else you're going to pay taxes, but those laws are going to change. There are no clear laws, so you can't really say. But honestly, at the end of the day, if you make a lot of money, you got to pay your taxes. You know, I know Simon's very adamant about that, but it only makes sense. Does anybody have something they want to say about that? You know, anything?
I agree. So pay your taxes. How else is humanity going to operate if we don't all cooperate?
I've got a bit of input on that. I believe, if I remember right, I think around that maybe March or April last year, I think Germany actually stated that no taxes would be paid on sort of purchases, if you want to call it that. But as an example, I've got 2 sort of third-party custody solutions, whatever you want to call them, exchanges, Wirex and Revolut. And I can assure you, I go out and I buy just my everyday items from using these cards. So I could go to the shop and buy cigs. I can literally use it for online payments in the store, to go shopping. And that's happening right now. Now, obviously, this is the case for myself in the UK. But if you have got XRP, you know, I have a laugh every single morning. I buy because, you know, I've been out of work. I've been using little bits of my XRP to get by, which I intend to put back. But I'm going to Butty Vans, and I'm like saying to everyone, I'm buying, you know, my food with XRP, and they don't have a clue what I'm doing. But the reality of it is, I think if you're taking out a large sum of money, which is obviously, you know, taxable by capital gains, but as far as I'm aware, I'm going around spending as much as I can. Well, not as much as I can, as much as I want of it. No questions asked. No, I don't know whether I'm in breach of any sort of law or anything there, but I'm using it as a currency. You know, not as an investment tool. You know, on this application, using it as an actual currency. So, you know, it's here now. It's here today. If that helps answer the question that was asked, anyway.
Yeah. Is that taxable? I don't know. I mean, I can tell you that the Token Taxonomy Act itself the way that it seems to read is that if you make like an immediate transfer from one crypto to another, as long as you're not transferring it to cash, at $600 or less, it appears to be non-taxable. So let's say that Starbucks at some point has like a Starbucks coin and you have XRP and you decide to buy Starbucks. If you're buying, via Starbucks coin, do you have to pay capital gains taxes on that? It's not clear. I could argue both ways, and that's the problem, right? There needs to be clear regulations. I think that it's probably going to be taxable, but I can't promise that.
From the UK perspective, in the UK papers that have been released by the HMRC, any transaction, so whether you buy or you sell from crypto to fiat, that's a taxable event, but also a swap from fiat to fiat is a taxable event in these current HMRC rules. So if you swap from XRP to Bitcoin, that's the moment that you've made your profit, and the difference between what you paid and what you made is what you'd pay tax on at that instance. So you've got to be very, very careful. Yeah.
So what you're basically saying is I'm fucked and I need to get an accountant.
I was going to say, just stay in contact with your local professional accountant. They'll know the tax laws as they change, because they will, and you'll be safe. You don't want to avoid the tax man.
Oh, I'm not avoiding the tax, man. I mean, you could argue to a point that, I don't speak for myself personally, but, what happens to someone who bought at $3 and they're now spending that at 30 cents? Are they not, up for, what's it called? Is it like losses that you can claim at? I don't know how it works, the law, to be honest. Just
someone posted the link for the crypto assets for individuals, the taxes in the chat there, so you can have a look over that.
Yeah. I mean, each country is different. Sorry, go ahead.
That's an important thing. Depending on where you live, you might actually be able to claim it as an exemption or an exception or whatever on your taxes, whatever your country calls it. You might actually be able to get tax benefits because, the real truth is most people who are here, they haven't been in it for a lot of years. So you've probably lost money, to be quite honest. So, most people are less concerned about having made money right now, rather they've lost money. But in the future, the real goal is they will have made that money, and hopefully by that time, regulations will be more clear and we'll have better answers for you.
Right.
Okay, I think a good topic to move on to, because I see a lot about it, and this has really been in a lot of chats that I'm part of. I see it all the time on Twitter regarding the DTCC. You see it a lot, and CSE Bain asked this question: do you foresee the DTCC using XRP in May, as many people have read and many people have said? Or, specifically, what involvement do you think the DTCC will have with XRP? Is there enough liquidity in XRP to even handle that? Could it be plugged into that system? Anybody have a perspective on that?
Sorry.
Simon, maybe. Yeah.
Sorry, Jess. I was just trying to load up this crypto assets for individuals, mate. I actually missed pretty much everything you just said. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Does anyone have a perspective on the DTCC?
There's two: the DTC and ACI Worldwide, which are both tied with Ripple, and they're both tied with XRP quite heavily. But I don't think these companies deal with central bank clearing. We're talking massive amounts of money, and yet they might be able to source some of their clearing or some of their payments through the network, but I can't see them doing major volumes.
Got a question here that I've had highlighted up here, Jesse, if you don't mind. It's from Julian Clark. A few companies have shifted from Hyperledger Quilt to R3 card. I presume this is positive for XRP holders, or is it net neutral? I actually have seen a few of these myself over Twitter recently. Although when I do see,
same thing, isn't it?
Institutions, sure. Well, Hyperledger Quilt is actually the plug-in to the Interledger protocol. If you think about the Hyperledger consortium, you've got all your big banks in there, JP Morgan, that are operating through Hyperledger. But I think when we're talking about Hyperledger Quilt to R3 Corda, I think to a degree they could potentially be doing the same thing. It could be sort of maybe the bridge into XRP. I mean, we've been hearing a lot recently about what Corda, in regards of, Ripple will be handling transactions, Corda will be doing all the other side of stuff, maybe the smart contract aspects of things. Derivatives, you could probably argue that as well, but that's a good question, I suppose.
I think you need to steer away a little bit on R3 and steer a little bit away on the Hyperledger in sort of an aspect of the settlement layer, because essentially R3 Corda is it's a DApps platform, and the same goes for Hyperledger Quilt. So these are the application layers of the blockchain. So it's a lot easier to build, and R3 is a much better platform to build than Hyperledger, which is why you see the moves, not necessarily for the settlement, but for the actual tech itself.
Yeah.
And broccoli here, I would like just highlight it, saying like if the value needs to move from one place to another, we don't care what system they move it across, as long as they use the most efficient and fastest asset. If they go through Hyperledger Quilt, they go through R3, or they go through some other intermediary blockchain, as long as they use the fastest and quickest settlement asset, it doesn't. We don't care.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So in a resolve to XRP, XRP is separate to the tech that's running it. So XRP is a free-floating sort of asset, and Ripple are positioning XRP to be the most competitive, and the XRP team and the XRP developers developed XRP to be the quickest, the most scalable, the fastest, but that's competing on a different level than the actual apps that are building out on it. That's its own thing altogether.
All right, great. Yeah.
I mean, just touching up on that, I think obviously the economic machine, obviously Simon, forever grateful for all the information you give us for that. But obviously with the illustration, it shows obviously XRP at the central hub of this network that's being built with the Interledger protocol, obviously connecting basically what was stated by the end goal for 2030 is every payment system on the planet to be interoperable using the Interledger protocol, obviously, potentially settling with XRP. Now, obviously, the Interledger protocol doesn't necessarily use XRP to settle, but again, on that even playing field, especially if we've got AI and robotics and we've got 70%, 80% of them trading, for the fastest route, then, potentially we're going to see a lot of demand for XRP, I think, but yeah, it's a fucking minefield, isn't it? Especially for newcomers coming in, they'll just probably be completely lost with all these different payment platforms. Remember, at one point, I used to be fearful, thinking, "Oh, it's competition against Ripple." But when you actually truly understand the sort of the core infrastructure, so to speak, of this Internet of Value, then you shouldn't really be worried about anything. You shouldn't be worried about JP Morgan coin. You shouldn't be worried about Amazon, Google, Apple, whoever they're going to use. What we need as XRP holders is hopefully for these technology companies, for example the W3C group, to actually adopt the Interledger protocol as the standard, and thereby being, if we're going into a digital world, a tokenized world, then obviously it makes sense for XRP, the fastest bridge asset. It's been going for 5 years, X amount of ledgers closed, it's the most decentralized sort of system of fairness is probably the best way of putting it, although Bitcoin maximalists will argue saying it's centralized. When we look at it realistically, we look at the condition of the world, the actual economy and the trust issues we've got worldwide, this is an essential piece of technology to actually move forward into a world where trust doesn't exist by using a trustless system, so to speak. That's why we like to brand it as, moving forward, the world reserve digital currency. Fiat money, paper money, is as unbelievable as it may seem to people. Moving forwards is going to be a thing of the past, and we're going to need a new sort of digital bridge, which currently, to bridge payments, we've got the corresponding banking network, SWIFT. The US dollar obviously holding around 63% demand for payments and settlements worldwide, and I think moving forward it may take a lot of time, but we're going to be at an end game where the world is just completely fucking different. When we talk about finance specifically, just wanted to add that in there a little bit anyway. I thought that'd be a nice little touch. Yeah,
Kurt, I think that you hit the nail on the head in that, whenever I see a lot of announcements on Twitter, all you see are people saying, when XRP are using XRP. But the point of what's happening here is we're creating this big, beautiful, open, competitive system, where, Ripple, in fact, created, the ILP, which literally is what allows us to have, this big open competitive system. So it's not like XRP is like, we're going to take over the world by putting everyone on the XRP ledger. They're trying to put everyone on the ILP, and then XRP is going to win a good portion of that business. So I think, we have to take a step back and stop asking when XRP, but more when ILP, when open competitive system, because once you have that open competitive system, who here can tell me that XRP isn't going to win most of it? Can anyone here say that they don't think they think XRP is going to get destroyed by other cryptocurrencies or other tokens?
Crypto's dead.
Crypto's dead. Yeah, I get that.
Rest in peace.
XLM's the Phoenix.
Hell no. Who's like broccoli coin? No way.
Yeah, but that's the point, right? We don't need it to be everything on the XRP ledger. It's more like an open competitive system. Let's let the best horse win for each job. And it's not going to be XRP every time, but you can feel safe in knowing that it's probably going to be XRP a good majority of the time. Does anyone disagree with that?
From a tech point of view, what Kurt was saying earlier, from an actual, the pure technicals, XRP is the most decentralized asset that is currently on the market. And in regards to XRP in a token battle, XRP has already won. It's already the winner.
Yeah.
I'd add one thing to that. Is one of the key things that makes XRP super special is the way that you can keep the same wallet address and rotate keys around. There's some videos that David Schwartz did recently where there's no other asset where somebody can be in charge of a wallet and then you can swap the keys around and suddenly another key owner is in charge of that wallet. So, I mean, does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah, I think adding to that as well, I know a lot of questions I get asked sometimes is you'll hear about assets that are probably faster, they can probably settle more, infinite scalability, all these different things. But another thing what people need to actually bear in consideration is and Simon actually, sort of educated me in this sort of chain of thought, is, there could be better tokens out there, faster, more scalable. But the problem is, it's all about liquidity, this. And if you look at, obviously, the fiat pairings around the world and exactly where XRP is now in regards of liquidity, although, yeah, it's not a very liquid market, but you can see exactly how far reached the network, how far it's branching out. I mean, I've lost count of how many exchanges it's listed on, and I've lost count of how many fiat pairings. I think the last time I checked, it was over 41 fiat pairings to XRP. So, we're talking about the world, sort of, so to speak, it's all about creating these pools of liquidity, safe settlement, zero risk in regards of having to hold nostril capital, and I do genuinely think it's about building a major liquidity hub for the digital age, and there will be others as well. It won't just be XRP, but I think XRP is gonna have it's like, the way I look at it is, if you look at Google as a search sort of tool on the internet, anyone can create a search tool, but are they going to use it when they've got Google, which has already got the head start, if you want to call it that? And I think XRP is just destined to be what it is. Obviously, I mean, you don't need to go into it again with the IMF. We've just heard Christine Lagarde, and she's talking about fairness and equality and financial inclusion, and it's all made possible due to this technology. Bill Gates, poverty will end in 2030. I think we already know who the front runner is, and who will probably gain the lion's share of settlement moving forwards. I'd just like to end
Dogecoin.
Dogecoin, yeah.
Fucking coin. Yeah, so, on Instagram, actually, so I noticed that Scott had been, maybe a couple of days ago, he was posting these videos of Imagine the Future, where he was like waking up from bed and saying, this is what it'll be like, when blah, blah, blah. That leads me to a question from JP Crypto. He wants to know, what do you think about banks, what their relation with cryptocurrency will be? Will they allow you to buy and store crypto in accounts, or do you think maybe they'll just turn your money into cryptocurrency, like JP Morgan coin? When you put $1 there, you're really just going to be holding it in a crypto form, and they'll hold that dollar for you. What do you guys see as that kind of a future? Are you going to be buying crypto through banks, or are they going to be turning it into crypto, or are you just going to hold money there, and whenever they need to move it around, they're going to change it into a crypto to send somewhere else? Maybe Kurt or Simon or Hugh.
Yeah, I mean, anyone else. If anyone else wants to jump in, maybe those who aren't put, you feel like maybe not put a bit of input in. I don't know if this is your opportunity. I mean,
I would like Chris to answer this one because he's pretty up there when it comes to how he uses Revolut and how he uses WireX and how he uses the rest.
I totally missed the question. I'm so sorry.
Oh, fucking hell.
Are you making another pizza?
No, I've crucified that pizza.
How do you feel like the world's going to be? Let's just envision.
He's eating grapes now. So, Chris, the question was based around like what do you see banks doing? When with regards to cryptocurrency, do you think you could buy crypto through banks, or do you think they'll maybe turn your money into cryptocurrency?
I think they're all going to have to offer it, at least, because they're going to have to compete with these new banks coming through, aren't they? Just like Revolut and WireX, they're all going to have to start following along, I think,
I think for myself personally, I think, just having a look around as of today, I mean, I'm speaking on behalf of UK citizens here, but my local town centre once had 7 banks. It's now got 0. And we're talking high street banks, the actual... the closures, nationwide are really, really getting to a point now where you can only go and see your bank if you go to a major part of the city. Whereas it was spread around everywhere because obviously online banking has took away that sort of need and requirement to actually have a branch, so to speak, scattered around. But I do think moving into the future, from something that I actually watched with Christine Lagarde about the IMF, and it was the role of central banks, and I think in maybe the next 10 years, central banks will still have that key pivotal role to play in this financial system. But I feel like we're going to get a lot of private banks, Google, Amazon, all these type of new, like Revolut, for example. I think high street banks are going to face fierce competition of who's actually going to start custody in people's assets. As Chris has mentioned, he's fully banking with Revolut now. His wage goes into there. Whatever he does on his purchases, he gets 1% crypto cash back in XRP. So these are the types of services that your average boring bland bank.
Why would you use a bank?
Exactly. And I've actually seen where the private sector will step up more, start owning custody of. For example, you could, for example, have 300,000 in value on a Revolut account. So to a degree, it already is a bank. Well, it is a bank. It's got granted a banking license, but I think we're really going into the age of internet banking now, where it's the same with the high street. And you see Amazon. It's the high street, whether it's closed stores, banks, everything's going online and digital. And I think there's going to be some fierce competition from the likes of RBS and NatWest and other banks being poached, having the customers poached off them for new startup banks. So I feel it's going to be a very competitive space. I think Amazon are going to offer some sort of service like that, become a global bank, so to speak.
I think Amazon will just wait until one of the smaller banks starts to struggle, and then they'll just sweep in and buy them.
Yeah.
And then they can just turn themselves into Amazon Bank. I think that's the way Amazon will do it because it's the easiest way to do it. They've already got a banking license. They just rename it, relaunch it, rebrand it, and ship it out.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the laws are changing. I could see fintech companies, they're applying to become banks. I could see that being a near,
No, I'm saying
I don't think it's a bad idea that they buy a bank.
It's difficult to start a bank.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get all the licenses. It's very difficult to. There is an awful lot of hoops that you have to jump through to start a bank. But for a company like Amazon, it is much easier just to swoop in and buy a bank. That's what I'm saying.
No, you're right. But you are seeing a lot of fintech companies get into the space. And, you even see this generally without putting cryptocurrency aside. You have all these online banks that are just offering so much more than what a physical bank can offer because their costs are so much lower. And you can see fintech companies, they're gonna give you all these great rewards just to use them for banking platforms.
It's not just about the banks. It's actually the customers that are changing because the younger customer age, obviously the millennial age and all the rest of it, we're not interested in going to a branch. If we don't have to go to the bank, we're not interested in going to the bank.
Just do it on your phone.
You know what I mean? So it's coming to the stage now where the old school people, like, my parents who were used to going to a bank and a banking, and don't get me wrong, I mean, we've got local banks, and you just see the little diddery old ladies who do not trust the internet or don't know how to use it. But as that age range is slowly dying off, which I know it's a horrible thing to say, but as that age range is passing on, then the need for physical locations is becoming less and less and less.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think we're gonna leave that topic alone for a little bit, and I'm gonna put Hugh on the spot because a lot of people here keep asking me for price predictions. So I'm gonna let Hugh handle that one.
Man,
yeah, there you go.
yeah.
I told you I was gonna make you do it. It's
Yeah.
all you, buddy.
By when though?
Oh,
Well,
which
Friday,
one?
4
End of
p.m.
year. When Moon, when Lambo, 2019.
Lambo.
Give me something here, baby.
2030. I don't know. Let's say.
I'm gonna say late in 2028.
Friday.
4 p.m. $10.
$10.
What?
I think rather than price predictions, because you don't want to hold yourself to that. I'm going to throw out some things and let me know if you think it's possible. And I think that might make people happy. Do you think that by May, $10 is possible?
Well, if you've got $136 billion going through into these tests, it's just like Kurt's video today. Was it today or yesterday?
No, dude, yeah, a couple of days yesterday.
You've only got to do simple maths. When it was at $3 something last year, you only had what, 5 billion going through it.
I think that's a good way of putting it. Actually, rather than asking for a price prediction, let's talk about how much volume we believe that we could potentially have running through the ledger. Because
I like that, Kurt. It's a good idea.
Rather than obviously putting a price tag to it. At the moment we're trading at what, 400 million. We've traded at 6.5 billion. Where do you see?
Hey guys, someone's making some weird noises. So sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. But
Simon's eating Pringles again.
Oh dang it, Simon!
Yeah, I mean, what we need is inflow of new money, and inflow of new money, not the recirculation of the money between different currencies. We need new inflow, and that will come with institutional money with regulations.
So what would you say? I'm not in there, Agent Broccoli from another planet. What did you say? Let's say we've got across the board regulation in the G20 states. We're at the back end of 2020, and we've got banks, major banks, as Yoshi could tell, has expressed his belief we'll be using XRP for payments. What do you believe if we've got 20 of the world's major banks utilising XRP? What volume do you reckon they could bring to the table? Because it's all about bringing volume to the table at the end of the day. Like you say, fresh money. Even if it's money coming into the market, it's just for that brief period for payments. The ledger needs to obviously be able to handle the volume, which obviously at the current prices, if we're talking in the three-figure billions, it's just not possible.
I think as the price increases in small amounts, the amount that the network can carry is probably much greater. You're going to have this kind of exponential gain. So as we go from 30 cents to 50 cents, or 30 cents to 60 cents, we're not going to be able to carry double the amount of money. We're going to be on a kind of logarithmic curve where we can carry a bit more, and every tiny increment is going to enable us to carry a lot more. So there's going to be a bigger acceleration of price increase than we suspect by drawing straight lines. That's what I think. Where it's going to go, I have no idea, and I would never put myself on video on YouTube.
Hey, listen, it's always friendly. It's not the gospel.
If we got to somewhere between 10 and 30 this year, I would be super happy. And I think 500 at the end of next year. By 2020, all of the central bank all the RTGS systems in 2020 have to be ready to be ILP enabled. We have this in all of our documents that by the end of this year, they need to be ready. So by then, something's going to happen. And if the liquidity isn't there, then the market's not going to work. So by 2020, there needs to be enough liquidity. So I would expect by the end of this year.
So you're saying by beginning 2020, not end 2020? I'm not trying to put you on a timeline.
I don't have the project plans in front of me at the moment, so I don't.
So 10 months in stone.
And I don't have them at all. Sorry, that was a joke. I don't have them at all. 2020 is when the RTGS systems, from the different documents that we've been reading that our sources found for us. Everything indicates that by 2020 they all need to be ready.
I think adding to
then the liquidity needs to be there by then as well.
I think adding to that, if we look at the general state of the global economy as a whole, I actually made a video on the way home. I forgot to upload it today. I spoke specifically about how the Federal Reserve have done a complete 180 turn on QT, and I believe personally interest rate hikes are done with now. I think they're gone. I think we're going to have rounds of QE before we have QT. And I do feel that, you know, from the research I'm doing from the likes of Peter Schiff and other economists, you know, the metal shillers are pretty good for getting this information, because they've always got a bad thing to say, and they find out and cherry pick all, obviously, the flaws within the system. I do personally believe that, you know, heading into 2020, during 2020, potentially going to 2021, we're going to have a catastrophic major correction across the stock markets. Liquidity is going to dry out. And for me personally, you know what my big picture is of this all. I think it's all part of the plan, so to speak. So I'd love to see a switch in dynamics, especially using XRP if we've got the regulations to do so. And could it be the tool that will prevent the next final crisis becoming a, you know, widespread Armageddon? Who knows? It's all, you know, that's just my theory.
Can I just add something really quickly? When everyone's talking about liquidity and stuff, the second it's legal to do so, an asset can gain liquidity so quickly, especially a liquid asset like a crypto. So liquidity isn't really the issue. The issue is the investment in liquidity and what that liquidity can deal with. When it comes to the payment type of things, I do disagree with a couple of things Kurt said on his video the other day. It's a great video, but as I said earlier, I don't think all 136 million is going to go through billions going to go through XRP on this trial, just because the system can't deal with it. When it does come to it, though, we all know the sort of math that's involved around it. So, you know, who knows? And that's the honest answer. Nobody even knows. So even Ripple won't have an actual figure. They will have a target that they want to achieve before they issue buy and sell walls to keep it stable. But they won't know how they're going to get it exactly, so to speak.
Right, Jesse, have you got any other maybe off-topic questions moving away from that?
Yeah. Sorry, I was just reading the comments. The one thing that I want to just remind everybody of is if you are not talking, try to keep your mic on silent, because there are some people complaining. And guys and girls in the comments, I'm sorry. You know, unfortunately, when you have a big group of people, it's impossible, you know, to stop all the noises. But
my mic's off.
Yeah. Thanks, Simon. Okay, so I think a good thing to talk about is SBI. You know, what do you guys feel is going to happen next month? You know, or if anything, you know, any expectations? Once again, no predictions. We're not telling people this is going to happen. But does anybody have any expectations? Anything they think that might come down?
XBI cigar.
I'm just
I don't know what just happened.
Those tests, I'm just anticipating them. That's what I'm waiting for. I want to see what they do. I'm just waiting for those just to see what happens. That's what I've got to say on that, really.
I think, again, obviously, and obviously, I understand, Simon, what he's saying there with liquidity. It's just not liquid enough to handle 138 billion, because it is fucking definitely not liquid to handle that. But, you know, with SBI, with Yoshi's tweet, he does express XRP, so whether a fraction of it will be going, we know some of it is going through XRP, but currently at the moment, it's not liquid enough to handle even a fraction of that volume.
On the vice versa of what I've said as well, if SBI go live and they've got major institutional investment ready to come in, then overnight it could be liquid enough to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like you say, nobody knows. At the end of the day, yeah, exactly. Well, these are the things, you know, people are going to hold them accountable. You know, his exchange will be number one in the blink of an eye. Obviously, you know, the top 20 banks around the world.
It'll be the highest exchange in the blink of an eye.
Well, that's what I mean. So, like you say, you know, and obviously, you've just got to look at SBI themselves. They're 11% stakeholder in Ripple, the company. They've started Ripple Asia, SBI Ripple Asia. Now they've started SBI R3 Asia. You know, they've got serious fucking major plans for this technology. And, you know, the consortium of banks is 80% of Japan's banks actually on X-current. You know, why aren't they going to use the digital asset when the regulations allow them banks to actually start using it? Again, we might see a monumental bull run that's never been witnessed in mankind. It could happen, or nothing could happen, in fact. You know, it's one of them. You just got to anticipate, you know, the pros and the cons. It could do it, it couldn't do it.
Just to give the actual figure of SBI's investment total, their total investment between Ripple and Corda and SBI is 128 billion yen. That's how much they've invested.
Yeah, is that all? Fucking hell. So obviously that, and you know, it's fucking serious money. I've actually read documents. I think RBS, they put 3 billion into innovation in this technology, and there's a lot of mentions of Ripple. I think Pandora is well and truly out of the box here. You know, the mainstream media might try and put a lid on it as much as you want. They may try and push retail investors out with FUD. We've seen a bit of it from Forbes recently. But, you know, I think because of the internet and the beauty of, I mean, for example, the Telegram group that we've got, it's a fantastic community in there. There's so much knowledge and wisdom, and it's great to be surrounded by people who are as enthusiastic as ourselves, because where I live, there's absolutely nobody who's paying a single ounce of interest, you know, but they'll be happy to go and put a £100 football bet on the weekend and lose it. But they just laugh when it comes to investing in crypto, and I personally believe it is probably the greatest bet. Yeah, and I have to say bet because, you know, there's no guarantees with it, but there's a hell of a lot of reasoning to basically claim that this is going to be what we all know it's going to be. I think it's way too far. As Simon's just said, 132 billion invested just from SBI. You know, let's think about all the other financial institutions and banks that are doing their own research, integrations. You know, I'm sure JP Morgan have spent a fair amount of investment into this technology with JPM coin. Listen, this type of money is not being thrown into this space just on the off chance that it'll work. It is 100% being adopted, and it is a matter of when and not if. I think that's a very good way of putting it.
Yeah, there's a lot of comments, you know, about is SBI going to delay, like you were just talking about, Kurt. You know, to be quite honest, they've been pretty clear about the launch of SBI VC. It's going to happen this month. You know, I mean, I can't promise anything, but you know, this doesn't mean that price is going to follow. But at the very least, I think that the exchange is launching. And just so everybody knows, we did lose Broccoli for a short period of time. His battery died. I'm not really sure how we'll get him back.
Right. I'll have a look into it.
But I think that
rest in peace, Broccoli.
What is going on? I think it's important to
just
sorry. Go ahead, Simon.
Quick interrupt. I did post a document in the Telegram group earlier. It was an SBI document from 2017 with the timeline for SBI VC, and
it's in March.
On the end of that, it was March 2019. The document was obviously issued in 2017, and every single thing that was on that document, so the introduction of BTC, the introduction of XRP, the introduction, all happened at exactly the same date that timeline said in 2017.
Yeah, Yoshi don't fuck around.
No, he's a dirty dog. He really is.
Yoshi's fucking the Japanese deep state. I'm fucking telling you, he's part of the fucking.
You know,
he is king of Japan, mate.
Sometimes I'm not so sure that he's not a bot, because he retweets literally everything.
Yeah, I've questioned the authenticity of
he doesn't retweet. There's a little man sat in a dark room.
I think I'm back, guys. Am I back? Can you hear me? Am I back in the call?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah. So Broccoli's back. By the way, if anyone can share the Telegram in the chat, people are asking about it.
I know, but we've had this
the
issue.
YouTube and Telegram.
I mean the Telegram link. If I assume it was reopened, right?
It was, but then it got reclosed because a few people complained.
Oh, it's closed again.
The only problem is obviously there's that much conversations that are going on, but I mean, I don't know. It's up to everyone in the group, because I mean, when I log on there, I'm struggling to keep up with what it is at the moment. But you know, it'd be nice to have people who've got a genuine. We had a lot of watchers and people who was not participating in it, and you know, there's a lot of data miners out there in bots and Telegram, so we had to sort of put a lid on it. We felt like we had a couple of breaches maybe at some point, so we was a little bit wary about it. But you know, maybe I don't know. We'll have this.
Well, maybe if someone can just reach out to the one person in the chat who asked for the Telegram, because it's only one person.
I would say, guys, that like in the beginning when you first get in, when I did it for a long time, when I first bought crypto, that I just watched and learned and didn't say anything, because that's what a smart person would do, is not get involved in something they don't understand while they're learning. So like, to kick off people who are watching,
you watched us
like
speak and
cutting off
leave.
our new friends, you know.
Yeah, I think what it was is though, Hooded Suburban had a breach on his one of his cards and stuff, and there was something going around on Telegram being breached itself, and we give plenty of ample warning beforehand, saying if you are just reading, just at least comment, because what we was doing, if he was not active for a month on Telegram itself, he was getting booted. So it's not like we was just throwing out the axe wound and
okay, fair enough. Sorry, yeah,
No, like I say, I think it's something we're looking. So I think we probably should put that tweet back out there. I mean, if people are interested, what we'll probably do is we'll probably put the link on Twitter maybe after this. People can join if they want to join. Look out for the tweet, and we'll just have to try and monitor a bit more. It just gets a little bit too much, that's all. But yeah, go on. Sorry about that, Jesse. I think was you about to say something?
Yeah, no. I think we're good. I think a good thing to talk about though that. I think maybe it's confused a lot of people, and to be quite honest, when I first entered this space, I had no idea what it meant. But liquidity itself, a lot of people think that tomorrow XRP could be worth $1,000 and they can, and everything's good. But I think it's important to, kind of explain how liquidity is built, why, XRP couldn't be worth $1,000 tomorrow, why you need to build those rails. I know that Simon has a really good understanding of this. I know Kurt has a really good. I think everybody here probably has a really good understanding about this. But if someone can take the lead on this and maybe explain, what it would take to build liquidity and what that would look like.
Does anyone want to go on that one?
But I mean, I don't mind defining liquidity and then someone take over, like what we need it to be. Liquidity is how much of the amount of an asset you can move without the price of that asset changing. So how much can you send? How many dollars can you send from A to B without the exchange rate changing? That's the definition of liquidity.
I kind of saw it as maybe, say, if XRP was a dollar and the bankers wanted to move $10,000, they'd need what? How many XRP? And then
well, no, but the word liquidity in the financial world means how much can you send without the price changing.
Yeah.
So when we have a lot of liquidity, it means we can send a lot without the price changing. When we have no liquidity, it means we can't send very much without the price changing.
Yeah, and a good example of that is if we look at today's price, 30 cents. You look at the order books. Let's just use Ripple Partners for this example. At the moment we know we're having low value, high volume payments passing through because they're small payments, and the value at 30 cents is liquid enough to move those assets without that price fluctuation. Now, if you put a spin on that and you put 1,000 payments all valued at, let's just say 100 million, what you're going to see is you're going to see ridiculous price swings at either end of the scale. So the buy side, the value is going to shoot up. On the sell side, the value is going to shoot down because it's selling the asset. And then you've got a massive basis point move, which basically makes Swift actually more cost effective than using XRP because it's just not liquid enough. You're going to clear so many layers of the order book out, and the price is going to follow suit. That when you come to sell it, you've got this massive price. If it's at 30 cents and you send it through, it could go all the way up to, let's just say $50, and then you try and sell it, could go to 0.00001 because it's just not liquid enough to do so. So,
Curtis, I think you're running a bit fast.
Oh no, that's just me speaking natural, that mate. That's just good old Mancunian accent, that pal. No, but I think that's a good way of looking at it. So if you got a value of $100 for an XRP, digital asset, then obviously you can move those high volume, the high value payments. Even if they're dripping through, 50 million, 5 million, 1 million. 125 million. It just simply can't do that at the moment. You get the price swings are going to be catastrophic either end of the scale. So I think when you talk about liquidity, I think what Simon went on to say before, you think about SBI, you think about the size of the consortium, it's custom based, institutional investment money. If you can have that flood the market, then obviously the demand for the asset is going to appreciate anyway, but then you can start throwing the payments on top of it, which will actually hold it into sort of a tight spread, so to speak. Obviously, people argue the what's the theory called, the Shane Ellis theory. People are adamant that it's going to work that way, but who knows? Again, like you say, it could just be a slow process. It could just be drips and drops added. there's a lot of people who are holding and a lot of people who will be wanting to sell. So you've got to take in the selling pressure as well. As this asset is increasing and it gets to 50 cents, 60 cents, you're going to have a shitload of day traders absolutely slamming on the sell pressure, and you've got to have enough volume and momentum to just absolutely break through the ceiling, and you've got to have immense buying pressure to keep that value up high.
Yeah,
so
I mean, it's how many people are willing to buy and sell at the same time. The more people who are willing to trade is more liquidity, because it keeps the price the same.
Yeah.
Based off that, if I can ask Simon, Simon always says, "Oh, there's not enough liquidity in XRP." What do you mean? What do you mean when you say something like that?
I mean there isn't enough value in it to move large payments. Yes, there is enough liquidity in it to move $1,000 without swinging the price. But the price, banks won't use it to facilitate large payments like you're talking earlier about DTCC and ACI worldwide. Massive clearinghouses won't use the asset until every single order on the exchanges, the swing is less than 0.1%. And that's the point of it, because then it's as stable as the FX market. What I was saying earlier on as well, when we're talking about Basel III, XRP is classed and will be classed as a very high value liquid asset. So when we're talking about banks holding liquidity, we're talking about banks holding high quality liquid assets, and crypto will be classed as a high quality liquid asset.
And Simon, what's the kind of thing that could cause there to be more liquidity in XRP?
And it needs access to derivatives, and it needs access to commodities. There isn't enough cash spare to pump the investment. Yes, we could probably get between 3 and 4 trillion liquid cash investment, but that's realistically all it could get. But with access to the derivatives market and with access to commodities, then it could literally gain trillions overnight. And I'm not saying it's going to, but it could do. That's my point on that. With tokenization and with access to derivatives, access to the much higher liquidity markets. The highest liquidity market that we've got is actually the real estate market. It's worth globally around about $240 trillion. Now, if we can access that, so if we can do sort of security-backed liquidity available through housing and through real estate, then obviously that value can flow into the XRP ledger, and that's when we're talking about sort of serious liquidity.
So Stuart just said, what do you think of Wellington Scully, the director of business development at Ripple? Retweet of Coinbase from yesterday. He just said liquidity, and I think two shower heads. I think that's what that is. Does anyone have an opinion on that?
Yep, the shower heads.
It's access to liquidity, isn't it? Because every exchange is a liquidity provider. So because as soon as they have access to it, then they have access to the investment from it. So every single listing of XRP is the addition of a source of liquidity for the network. So all of Coinbase's customers are now available to buy XRP. So that is direct liquidity because it is a cash liquidity as well. So it's a pure cash investment.
Yeah, and a question was, why can't the Fed pump XRP as needed like QE for the stock markets? I think that part of it is that it's not specifically legal. The Fed does have laws it needs to follow. And right now, I don't think they could hold, even the Federal Reserve, I don't think they could hold XRP. I mean, they could probably get away with whatever they want to do, but is it legal? I don't think so.
But that's what we were talking about earlier, weren't we? With there is certain things that need to change in respect to the banks being able to hold a riskier asset. So they can hold a riskier asset, i.e. a mortgage-backed security, which back in 2008, that was 30-40% of the bank's holdings were in mortgage-based securities. And when the housing market crashed, obviously the banking system crashed along with it, and that's what sort of the Fed had to step in and sort and all the rest of it. So they were pretty much sort of outlawed from making risky investments. But now that cash liquidity is running low again, Powell has literally sat there saying, we need private investment into mortgages, private investment into, so they need access to it again in order for the system to actually grow.
You were talking about tokenization, Simon. What does it look like when you start tokenizing assets like a house or other things like that, or national parks, or anything really? Tokenization
is going to work in a various way. So, if it can access derivatives, then somebody can tokenize it, and then they can derive products from their actual tokenized assets. But in essence, it's going to work as in anybody can sort of sell their assets, or anybody can sell shares in their own assets. So if you've got a building that's worth $1 million and you've got no obligations on it, you can make 1 million tokens. You can say that I'm going to retain 30% of these tokens, and then I'm going to issue the rest of them onto sort of like, the blockchain or to the security company or to whatever. And then people are going to buy those individual tokens, and that's how it's going to gain liquidity. But that gives them an actual stake in the property. So, and just to be clear, that tokenization will have a term of maturity on a smart contract or something like that. So if that amount isn't repaid within the time, then you will lose the hard asset, and it will be sold to recover the price of the token.
Good stuff. That really is. Does anybody know how many currency pairs that it says the question is XRapid has, but I think I think really XRP.
It's currently got 44 fiat pairings around the world.
44. Wow. That's good stuff. All right. Anybody else have something to say on what we were just talking about? Chris, Kurt, Hugh, Broccoli.
I'm good.
You can't really add to that.
I think Simon pretty much nailed that one on the head.
Okay. Okay.
But don't trust me, because who am I?
Remind me what the question was in the beginning.
There's a little question.
I'm an old space vegetable.
I think we'll just move on.
Okay, fair enough.
Does anybody?
It's the same.
Yeah. What is your opinion on whether price needs to be fixed? So people say for this to work, but for things to happen, does price need to be fixed, or do you think it needs to remain stable? What do you guys think about that? Broccoli, you're up.
I think it'll. My feeling, and this is purely just from a nerdy technical background of I always follow what's the most logical thing that you would do. So if you were designing a system and you're trying to get it to go from A to B, and you have these hurdles to go through, what's the most logical path that you would take, considering all of the different aspects that affect the flow from A to B? So here in this case, my feeling is that we do small jumps, and then we're held in place by the same controls that are holding us at 32 or 31 cents for the months that we've had. There must be some buying and selling pressure that holds us in this place, which means they can hold us in another level. So I think we'll go through in steps going up. I think some of them will be quite big, some of them may be less big, and as we go up in steps, more value can be transferred over the network, which makes the network more valuable, and the nuclear reactor state of the XRP ledger with XRapid and Corda and everything transacting kind of becomes, it's like a nuclear reactor. You have to get it going, and then when it's going, it just gets more and more powerful. That's what I think.
Yeah, you're definitely right.
I agree.
Yeah, go on. Oh, sorry, Hugh. I'll let you take the floor with that one. Hugh, you there?
Yeah, I don't think Hugh was talking there.
it wasn't me.
All right, who was that?
I don't know who it was, to be honest. Maybe it was Chris.
It wasn't me.
Oh,
It was me. But I agree with Broccoli.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think
Okay.
what was he even talking about then? It's just completely slipped my mind, that. Yeah, of course. So obviously he talked about the powers that be, the suppression, whatever he was talking about. But what was shit? I've completely blanked on what you was fucking talking about then. I had a proper good valid points to put in, man. It's just completely gone past my mind. So I'll have to pass, unfortunately. It'll come back to me. I'll spring it back out when it comes back to me.
All right, Kurt, we'll let you sit on that. I'm going to ask Hugh one of the heavy hitter questions. Hugh, when this thing moons, what is your first dinner? What are you gonna cook for, or buy? What kind of meal are you gonna get for yourself?
Oh man,
I'll just go to McDonald's or something. Keep it simple. No, I don't have a clue. I hadn't thought about that.
I'm gonna get a gold steak from France.
That's right. That sounds pretty good. No,
I'm gonna buy speakers.
Oh, that's it's come back to me. It's come back to me. So I'm going to jump in.
Hit it.
Right. So as you were talking about the stepping up process, the build of liquidity, so to speak, there has been a lot of heat discussions on Twitter about this in the past. So I've actually got a good understanding on something that people might not sort of know. But if we do take a jump from 30 cents and let's say to $5, for example, just as a random ballpoint figure, once we've reached that $5 value, if we then have a steady flow of payments utilising XRP and the buy and the sell, if we do come under immense sell pressure from the retail investors, then simply the payments will pick them up and sort of level it out more in comparison. So you could have a total of 95% of payment ledger volume passing through at $5 and 5% of retail selling into that. So it's not going to actually have that massive sort of turn of events that we saw in 2017. So from the understanding that I've gained, if we was to go to $20 and we had a steady flow of payments running through the ledger, buying, selling either end of the spectrum, and we've got that deep pool of liquidity, I believe that the actual function of the payments passing through can actually act as sort of a stability mechanism to actually pin it to that price. Does that make sense, or am I just talking shit? But that's what I've got the impression of. I think that was through having a heated debate through Galgatron, Lord Galgatron himself on Twitter. He's very knowledgeable really about all this type of stuff, but he actually agreed with that principle of what I've just mentioned.
I'd say it makes sense, and you're talking shit. Just a little bit of both.
There's no fucking new news with that. I'm talking shit on a daily basis, screaming in my van on my own with people looking at me thinking that I'm fucking about to go and murder my missus when they get home. So, nothing's new there. Is there anything else anyone wants to put any input on that? Or Simon?
Well, I'll say something else just because I can. I think there's like a wealth redistribution program, like very subtly happening in the background. Like you see it in normal day-to-day life. Like in the beginning, years ago, people had shitty, huge TVs. Then suddenly we have bigger, smaller, flatter TVs. You can't afford them in the beginning, but a year later they become more and more accessible. And I think the luxuries in life, like, move down from this is something that only other people have to it becoming normal. And as we progress with changing the world through the benefits of this technology, the standards of living for the people at the bottom rise, and the standards of living for the people at the top become closer and closer. So
globalization for all.
Globalization, it's about eradicating poverty. It's not about control. It's about giving people freedom to have the same opportunities that we all have.
I know that the last time that myself, Simon, and Kurt were here, when we ended the conversation, we went off a deep end of chip implants, and you see a lot in the chat about what do you guys think about the connection between implants and Ripple, and I've heard about it a little, but actually, truthfully, haven't done any research. Does anybody claim to be an expert? Not an expert, but know what they're talking about that connection? Can anyone speak to that?
I remember that conversation, and I've eaten chips. That's all I can say.
It'll be NFC chips, won't it? So it's just going to be, it's just like what's in your phone, really.
I mean, in all fairness,
Google Pay.
Yeah,
Google Pay and Apple Pay.
It's something I'm going to do voluntarily, just for a laugh. I want to go into my Tesco store and pay with my palm and watch security come and grab me, thinking that I've manipulated the system. It's going to be fucking great. I'm going to feel like a real life Star Wars character. I'll say, may the Force be with you, as I'm paying my payment, and they'll just be stunned as I walk out the shop.
But the thing is, it won't be just payments. You'll have all your medical data on there, everything else. So if you ever go on holiday, and anything ever happens to you, they can just scan your chip, and they've got all your records all around the world on the blockchain, I guess. So it's a good thing, I think.
I call it AKA financial enslavement, but a lot of people get a bit upset when I say that terminology. But when you look at it, look at what the internet is, look at everything that come out of the Edward Snowden case about the NSA surveilling their own. It's no different here. It's a control mechanism.
Yeah.
But there was a connection, right? Recently with a company. I just maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but I thought that Ripple, there was ties to them and some kind of company that involves chip implants.
No,
is that inaccurate?
Chip ones.
Sorry, I missed that.
Chip witches. That's it. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just in response to something Chris just said, I actually had a meeting with somebody on Tuesday, regarding medical records, and pretty much exactly what he was saying there. And at the moment, the NHS in the UK, individual hospital records are only owned by the individual hospitals.
By the GP.
Yeah, there is no sort of database at the moment where records are stored centrally, and every hospital has access to the individual patient, even though we are individual patients by numbers. And it was a relatively big meeting in response to not just blockchain, but the important thing that people are missing the importance of the cloud in this space, because the importance of the cloud, especially with blockchain, is incredibly important. So it isn't just blockchain, it is blockchain and the cloud that's important.
Yeah.
All right,
Why?
cool.
Can you go a bit more into the cloud?
Why?
Yeah, why?
Why?
Why our fearless leader, Simon?
Why?
I'm not the fearless leader.
You are an undercover NSA agent, Simon. I don't give a fuck what you say, mate. You've got
tell
some
us
insight.
why.
You've got some insights. You're too clued up and smart for this shit to not know something.
I know nothing.
That's
I'm
what,
just away from the internet.
and that's what an undercover agent would say. But you're producing
This
information.
is a Fireside gangbang. Remember, we're in the Fireside gangbang. Everything's allowed.
We just had a thing come through from Stuart saying 1 minute ago, 1 billion XRP unlocked from escrow.
That's the escrow. The escrow.
The same time it goes onto Coinbase.
But
no, it's not the escrow. That was already done this month.
No, it's in my wallet now.
Oh no, it's not. It's the first. Sorry, no. I'm talking
and can I just say though that that is by UK time, and that is the earliest that they could have released it, and it has never been released from escrow that quickly ever.
Like 3 minutes.
Now, was there a message with it? I love when people put messages. Does anyone know?
Stuart, have you got anything else on that, mate? Can you post any links in the Telegram that we can put up on here?
I'm gonna go and do. I'm sure it's all over fucking Twitter, mate. You know they're all over it like a fucking sack of zombies, aren't they?
Yeah, fucking
It's probably
liquidity.
just an escrow, normal escrow.
What is it usually?
XRP monitor.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been happening for the last few days, so it's just money moving.
Stuart posted a link in the chat.
But
let's talk about Christine.
1 billion will be sent back in a few days. Like they done.
Yeah, they'll sell what they need in the
previous months. It's escrow execution anyway, so it's definitely escrow.
Stuart said the revolution will be televised.
Yeah, we've got it up on the screen. I'll put it on big screen here for everyone.
Jesse, you need to get control of this meeting. This meeting's out of control.
What are you talking about? I think it's going pretty well.
So the revolution will be televised.
Right,
so that's obviously a reference to Jungle Inc.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's pretty exciting. Anybody think anything of that?
How can it do that?
I'm just waiting for the day that they put on it. It will power the world's economic infrastructure like the Terminator and steroids, and I'll be happy. Then I'll be happy when I see that fucking memo put on there.
Yeah,
and anyone can put a message on a Ripple escrow.
But yeah, I know, but it's
surely the person who's sending it
who gets mentioned by Mark Carney at the
Well, there you go.
This escrow happens on the first every month. At the first.
Yeah, it does happen on the first, but it's very quick for a start. Normally, because it becomes available to be released from the first, but it has to be activated. So this one's been activated very quickly after the deadline. It's literally
anyone can activate it. Just only
anybody can activate it. Yes. So, but this one has been activated very, very quickly, and I'm actually looking who activated it because
it's probably Sam.
No, it's not Sam.
Are you telling me the revolution is not going to be televised?
The revolution will never be televised. No. The shit is dark.
If
I'm going
televised, it will cost 69 drops.
Yeah.
I'm going home, guys. If it's not televised, I'm out.
The revolution will be blacked out.
Right, guys.
So is it always,
speaking of the revolution, sorry, what were you saying?
There are still hundreds of people watching us, listeing to us talk crap.
Yeah.
So
speaking of the revolution, I think it's important to talk about what happens when XRP. I don't want to say moons, but moons is the best word, because all I see on Twitter, in our group is, when it moons, I'm going to buy a Lambo, I'm going to do blah 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 blah. and they're going to all these things. And to be quite honest, we've talked about this a lot, but it's very easy to get rich, but it's hard to stay rich. And I think, I see a lot of things about people wanting to do crazy things, and I think maybe we should take a step back from that. Anybody have any ideas on, when it does in fact moon, what would be the first step that you would take to, rather than, obviously you want to have some fun, but to also ensure that you're planning for your future of finances?
Reinvest.
What are you going to do?
Reinvest passive income.
That's what I want.
Reinvesting is a good idea, but I think it's also a good idea to, let's say it happens, instead of just going and making decisions, it's good to take a break, whether it's a week off and just think about things, don't do anything crazy, take a week off, really just relax and make up your mind. It's important to find investments, but you also have to find peace with yourself.
It'd be nice to take a year off.
If you've really made a lot of money, you go and find a financial advisor. You look and find a good financial advisor.
And an estate planning attorney, right?
That can come.
Is that you,
from
Jesse, by any chance?
But the first
you're in New
contact,
Jersey,
you
don't
find
do
someone
that.
who can guide you, who's used to dealing with wealth, that you can trust.
Yeah, financial advisor, estate planning attorney, insert plug here. That's what I do.
Or our own NSA fucking agent.
No.
Simon's the man. Simon's, he's fucking working for the NSA. He's bettable guy 1, 2, 3. He's fucking
Simon
whatever
Schwartz.
you want him to be, Simon.
Fuck off.
Yeah, let's not mention any of that diddler stuff, because we're pure from that nonsense.
No,
let's
I
not
think,
even bring it into the room.
I'm just trying to have a look through some questions.
If you don't mind.
Dang, that's
Yeah,
what I
I'm
came
trying to
for.
look through them too. It's mostly just people telling us how
while you're all
dumb
looking
we
for
are.
questions, I'm going to answer Kurt's other question about the cloud.
Yeah.
Now, the blockchain, obviously, is very important because from a settlement point of view, it records all transactions. But it is not the easiest thing in order for just a database service, because there's no point to it, because it has to be maintained. So there has to be active participants on the network to maintain the network and to make sure everything's sort of done. So some use proof of work, some use consensus, some use proof of stake, etc., etc., etc. But it's, from a data points point of view, it's a bit pointless. So from the application layer point of view, so as in SAP and Temenos and all the rest of it, it makes no sense for them to build these applications on the blockchain, but everybody needs to access them. So they couldn't have done this without the cloud. Well, they could have, but it would have taken an incredible amount of work and an incredible amount of data storage and an incredible amount of electricity and an incredible amount of just to maintain it. So it's pointless. But the cloud has opened up a whole new avenue of applications and application layers and infrastructure, because the cloud is an infrastructure on its own. That's why it's important.
It's almost like you know something about the cloud, Simon.
Yeah, it does. It sounds that way to me as well, Jessa.
Yeah.
It helps working around clouds, though, doesn't it?
Yes, but I do know something about the cloud because it's my job.
I mean, the cloud's right above us. That's all that I know about.
Well, the cloud isn't right above us, is it? The cloud's many, many, many miles above us.
If you're in the mountains, you might be in the clouds.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you guys
heads are
think?
in the clouds.
I mean, the cloud is someone else's computer, basically.
What do you guys think about certain programs that allow you to earn interest on your XRP? One that I think about is Uphold. I forget the company that they're tied with, but basically,
Cred.
I don't forget it because
Cred. That's it.
By accident.
What'd you say, Simon? Can you repeat that?
So went all in on Cred.
I know.
Simon, you put all your money into Cred?
I didn't put it all into Cred. I went to make a purchase on Uphold and I didn't realise I was buying Cred. And I bought Cred
that's
by
right.
accident.
You bought the Cred token or whatever.
Stands for
You were down with the flu. It's okay.
Stands for credible guy.
But what do you guys think about the program, not the coin? Cred earn.
I think it's a good idea, earning interest on your crypto. I just don't feel very trustworthy at this moment in time.
I'm going to wait on it.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
I 100% trust Uphold.
Yeah, I trust Uphold. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Obviously, I think they're reputable, but I think there's a lot of them out there at the moment that are offering, 4, 5, 6, 7% back in your crypto, and Yeah, I don't know. I just
But,
see it
but
as.
can I just say, at the moment, these are the companies that are providing liquidity on the XRP ledger, because this is what we're talking about investment now. They're not investment firms, they're not hedge funds, but these are the companies that are allowing you to give them your XRP, and then they can use that XRP to provide liquidity and then pay you interest on it.
Yeah, and you know, with those programs, you know, and I think I share a point of view that some people in the comments share is when there's insurance, when there's some kind of insurance, I think I'm more comfortable with it. Until there's insurance, I'm a little bit worried about, you know, what could happen and what they're actually doing.
That's why I'm going to wait on it. I think it's a great idea. I think it's one of the best ways to earn money. I mean, you don't have to spend your crypto. You don't have to cash out. Like, you know, everyone's talking about cashing out here, cashing out this and that. Plan for cashing out, or you could just get interest on it, and that's it. If you have enough, and if you have,
but yeah.
Well,
sorry. I was just going to say, if it keeps appreciating over time, then surely, you know, this.
Yeah. I mean, broccoli here. I mean, at the moment there are like two offerings. You've got Uphold Cred, which is like a 6-month tied-in contract, so and you get the interest at the agreed rate on the price of your XRP when you buy in on day one, that you're tied in for 6 months, and you get whatever you bought in on day one. And then Nexo's offering, which is still not completely clearly defined. I mean, they've announced it. Is supposedly fluid, and you can go in and out at different times. And receive interest on what you've invested at that time. This is I've got my little research sheet in front of me. The key about these things is that they're not taxable, at least in the UK. Like if you take a loan against your crypto, you're not taxable. So if you can beat in a gain over a year, I think Nexo is 16% by default and 8% if you pay using their token. And I did hear that there were some problems with people trying to do this, so be careful, because there have been people who bought the tokens thinking they were paying 8, and they weren't accepting the 8% token payment, and so these people were paying 16% on their loans. So follow that.
I suppose another good way of looking at it is as well. I mean, you've got to take in consideration just natural inflation that occurs. The devaluation of your currency. You know, if you was holding £1 million, if inflation by 2%, they usually say that you want to try and invest money to obviously succumb and surpass that inflation target. Now, if there's a reputable exchange out there, or someone providing this this service that can offer 4, 5, 6%, and it is safe, and you are insured, then I think it's a good investment vehicle, to be honest, on your actual holdings.
It's no difference to making a leveraged investment. It's just that you're taking it in cash. The amount of change that it has to occur before you get your investment wiped out is less than if you don't touch it. And if you start leveraging when you're down, you're already in trouble. Yeah. And so be very careful, particularly if you're not in a positive situation, that you don't start leveraging. At least it looks like you're not down, but you're actually starting to go down a plug hole. So there's a lot of danger in this stuff if you're not on the winning side.
Yeah, and just so you know, a lot of exchanges aren't insured. You know, even in the States or wherever, you know, Coinbase, I think they actually have insurance, but only on the cash. They don't have insurance on cryptocurrency. So even with the interest program, whether you're talking interest programs or just holding your crypto, I mean, it's all questionable. Now, not questionable. That's a bad word, you know, but none of it's insured right now. That will be great to see in the future. I still trust a lot of the exchanges.
Cred are insured. Cred are insured.
They are?
for 100 million.
Are they insuring your XRP?
Per partner, per transaction. So they can insure you up to 100 million. That's what their docs say. I don't know about Nexo.
I could have sworn the last time I checked they weren't insured. So
this was the recent. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I think. I mean, we're at a 2-hour period here now. It's 12 over here. I think that was a fucking great effort. That great 2 hour live stream, but I think it's probably a good time now probably to end that. Everyone who's come in, been massive support. Obviously we didn't really know what to talk about, so it's because of you guys why we've had the questions, but I would like to ask everyone that's involved in this chat on Skype to just stay obviously when we do disconnect from being on live, but I think it's been a good little live stream. I don't know about you guys. I don't know if you want to say anything before we do sort of.
I've had a blast.
This has been miserable.
It's been it's not been, but no, people love this shit, mate. People love it, trust me. People love this shit, honestly. We might think it's just everyday chat, but because there is a lot of sophistication involved into it, then a lot of people can take stuff away from it. You know, whether we feel like we're talking shit, which we are, you know, it's actually.
I was just kidding. I'm having a good time.
No, I know you are.
I get a headache trying to figure out what you're saying, but you know, it's all the same.
I'd like to correct something I said because I mumbled something about key evolution, and I meant key rotation. The fact that you can hold a single wallet and change the keys that control that wallet is like a critical function of XRP, and I fumbled that earlier on, and I wanted to make that straight because it was annoying me. And then I'm done. Cool.
Right, well, it's been, like I say, if all you can just stay in the chat when I go, but I am going to just cut it off short of that. It's been great. Thanks for everyone who's come on. Thanks for everyone who's come into the live streams, and we'll catch you in the next